Hello. Thank you so much for having me, Ideagen, for the invitation and for the amazing summit that you're putting in. My name is Camila Kaul. I'm the founder and CEO of Just a Squiggle, a creative thinking center dedicated to untap your secret superpower, creative thinking to innovate. Today, we're going to do exactly that. I'm going to show you the three easy ways in which you can uncap your secret superpower and do this on your own time at your own pace. Specifically today, we're going to talk about how this helps you innovate. So let's get to it. The first thing is you may be asking, why is this important? Why is it that we're here? Why creative thinking and why that to innovate? Well, the reality is that if 2020 showed us anything, is that we have to be ready for anything in the horizon. There's no guarantees. We have to figure out a way in which we always maintain ourselves relevant and we are flexible enough for change. We saw 10 years of change in 8 months. We saw jumps in every single industry that we haven't seen in more than 10 or 15 years. So reality is if you want to stay in business, if you want to get ahead of your competitors, meet your new customers' needs, and make sure that you're impacting your bottom line, you're going to need to think thoughts you have never thought before. And the way that you can do that is by tapping into your specific secret superpower that it's called creative thinking. Something we all have, but we just forget to activate to make sure that we start innovating and creating things that we've never done before. Why is that? Why is so complicated for us to figure out how to untap into our secret superpower? Well, reality is that our brains are brilliant at making assumptions and connections and help keeping us safe. And that means that our brain takes a lot of shortcuts. It's fantastic that the way that the brain works because it's a machine that allows for to keep you safe. It's a machine that helps you iterate really quick. It's a machine that is very adaptable. Problem is that as we create more experiences and knowledge in our brain, the brain starts getting shortcuts, starts getting a little bit lazy, and it goes always into the bulk of ideas and experiences that we always had. Therefore, we always think thoughts we've always thought. But what if we could actually untap it? What if we could actually tell our brain, you know what? Today's a day in which you are going to be thinking thoughts you've never thought before. And that's how we start provoking our brain. We want to get him out of the shortcuts mode. So that's exactly what we do with things that we know as provocations. Provocations is brain food. It's anything that takes you out of your comfort zone, of the way that you always do things. It's small things like questions. It's small things like images. It's small things like journaling. There's a lot of ways in which you can provoke your brain. You can provoke your brain by just going outside and taking a walk and getting input from your environment. That on its own, it's provoking your brain. If we're thinking from a business perspective, provocations come in many, many forms. Very powerful ones are a couple of creative thinking techniques that help you activate your brain to think differently. It's a great way to do this not only for you, but with your teams, because at the end, we want diversity of thought. We want to make sure that all voices are heard. We want to make sure that all ideas are out there. And we want to make sure that we're doing this in a way that it's inclusive for everyone. So specific techniques on the business side of the house can really help you untap your secret superpower, specifically to think about how to innovate for a business or an organization, for example. So I want to walk you through 3 of those, one of my favorite hacks in terms of how to activate creative thinking for your specific business. And this might help you innovate and think thoughts you've never thought before. My first preferred hack, it's called force connections. This is going to help your brain activate it in a different way and form new concepts. You can see this in many ways in which Apple does it, Google does it. Many of the inventions that we have right now are a result of a forced connection. And by that, I mean that we're going to ask our brain to connect 2 things that in nature seems that they don't go together. They don't go together at all. So the way that we do force connections is first we have to identify our problem. What is it that we're trying to achieve? What is it that we're trying to solve for? I'm going to give you an example. couple of months ago, I was struggling to figure out how do I position creative thinking as a must, something that everyone has to have, something that is absolutely critical for the evolution of your business, and it's going to give you a competitive advantage. But I was really struggling to figure out a way, an angle that will help me position this in a simple yet very powerful way. So what I did was I forged a connection. The way that you do that is my problem. I put the statement out and I wrote it down on a piece of paper. How do I make sure that I position creative thinking in a novel, a very powerful, simple way? Second thing is you're gonna pick an object, a random object. You can just go to Google and say, give me an object and see what happens. You can just open a magazine and just point to one specific word, and we're gonna use that object to force a connection in our brain. In this case, my object that I found was a broccoli. And what you do once you have your specific object is you're going to list all things that that object stands for, all the benefits, all the characteristics of that specific object. So in my case, the list started something like this. Okay, broccoli, it provides vitamins. It helps me grow. It's healthy. It's everything that you need in terms of energy for the day. And that started creating a list of very interesting concepts about what a broccoli, what this object could do for me. So the same thing applies to you. Once you find an object, the idea behind that is that you can make a connection between your problem and that object. In my case, if my problem was how to position creative thinking in a way that it was powerful yet simple, I started thinking about how would a broccoli help me do that? In my case, I started thinking and connecting ideas, things like this. For example, creative thinking is your daily dose of food for your brain. Creative thinking is the vitamins that you need every day to think differently and grow your business. Things like that started coming out of my mind just because I made the connection between a random object and my actual problem. Once you do this, you're activated parts in your brain that are generally not used to working together. You're asking your brain to think about your business, for example, or your current problem, and map it out to something so random like a broccoli. So this is the time for you to do exactly the same thing. So what I would like for you to do is take a piece of paper and first write your problem statement. What is it that you're trying to accomplish here? Second, pick a random object, any object that you can think of, anything that you can pick up from your house, anything that you can look at around the window and you can just see. Third, make a list of all the things, characteristics, attributes of that specific object. And then finally, make a connection. Try to figure it out. How would you solve your problem using that specific object? Have fun with it. This is the beauty of creative thinking. It should feel light in nature. It should feel easy to do. So give it a try. Do this at your own pace. Give yourself the chance to experiment with this technique and let me know how it goes. Now let's go to our second technique. Our second technique is called the revolution technique, and this is one of my favorite techniques of all times. A lot of the inventions that we see today came from the revolution technique, and I'll explain why. The revolution technique is a provocation for your brain, and it's going to help you think thoughts that you haven't thought before, because it's going to force you to ask yourself questions that are out of the ordinary. To get started, the first thing that you have to do is to list all your rules and assumptions that you have about a problem. Everything that has to do with the way that it's supposed to happen, or the situation that you're trying to pursue a solution for. After you have listed all the rules and assumptions about a situation, you're going to challenge the rule with 3 simple questions. First one, what if we do something weird? Second, what if we exaggerate one of those rules? And third, what if we do the opposite of the rule? This is going to start generating a list of very different type of thoughts that you generally don't think. When you're asked to come with an idea, your brain goes into this shortcuts mode that I was mentioning. this is a way to get you out of that shortcuts mode. You're not going to go to the vault of experiences. You're not going to go to the last thing that you did and it resulted in something positive or negative. You're actually going to provoke your brain and wire him to think differently and think about situations and scenarios that are not typical to you. So in this case, I'm going to give you an example. I run a session with one of my clients in New York City, and we were thinking about how to create the new bar experience in the city. If you know anything about New York City, is that there's every single possible bar invented. And there are so many concepts and so many things that are already out there. So when we sat down and said we want to do something differently, and the way for us to start thinking about it was to provoke our brains with this technique. So we said, okay, let's list first all the rules and assumptions about bars. Well, bars are loud, they open at night, they sell alcohol, they have a bouncer. And that's generally understanding of what a bar is. Fantastic. Now, let's challenge our rules and assumptions with those three powerful questions. What if we do something weird? What if we do the opposite of a rule? And what if we exaggerate the rule? So in this case, what if we do something weird? Well, instead of being in a normal street, what if we put the bar inside our library? What if we do what if we exaggerate the rule? Instead of being only open at night, it's going to be open 24/7. And what if we do the opposite of the rule? Instead of having a bouncer at the door, what if we have a librarian at the door? So at the end, this generated a list of possible ideas. It doesn't mean that it's the idea that you're going to go with, but it's just going to start provoking thoughts and concepts that you were not originally thinking because we're not used to asking ourselves this type of questions. So by the end, we ended up in the concept of the next new bar experience in New York City inside the New York City Library, open 24/7, only if you can quote a book at the entrance. So there you have it. This is the second technique that will help you provoke your brain and get out of the shortcuts mode. And why do I say that a lot of the inventions come out of this? Because somewhere, at some time in history, started with the rules and assumptions that, for example, humans cannot fly. And somewhere else, and so at some time, people like Leonardo da Vinci or the Wright brothers revolutionized that, provoked their brain, and broke those rules. And that's exactly how we now have inventions like the airplanes. Why is it that we cannot fly? And this is the type of mentality that we need to innovate. This is the type of thinking that we need now more than ever, because the way and the norms and the rules that applied in the past will probably not apply in the future. And we want to make sure that, yes, we learn from the future, but we think expansively about the future. Finally, let's go to our third hack. The third hack is called Alter Heroes. And Alter Heroes is a fantastic technique to give you a fresh perspective. What happens a lot is when we're trying to innovate, we're always focused on the same type of situations, or we're trying to focus on the same type of industry in which we are, or the type of problem that we're facing is similar to other problems that we've seen in the past. Generally speaking, we're in a bubble, and we're generally operating in the same sense and in the same area or environment. What we want to do here is bring a different perspective. We want to make sure that we're thinking from other angles. We want to make sure that we're giving our brain another type of provocation so we can come up with other novel ideas. So in this case, Alter Heroes works in this way. First, again, we start with the problem. What is it that we're trying to accomplish here? Second thing, we're going to think about a hero, a person, a company, an industry, anything that is different from us, hopefully opposite from us. And we're going to ask ourselves, how would this hero, what would it say, think, feel, and do to solve this problem? So we're trying to make sure that we're not thinking about how our typical mindset will solve this problem. We're thinking about someone external, something different, someone in another industry might solve this problem. So to give you an example about this, at some point I was working with a company that was creating meditation experiences for kids. It was a challenge on its own because it was a new target market, and we were generally speaking to adults. And going into a specific audience like kids require a level of innovation that we just didn't have. So at that point, what we did was do this exercise about alter heroes, and we thought about a hero that had to do with our market audience. In this case, we thought about Elmo, and we thought, okay, what would Elmo say, think, feel, and do to solve this specific problem that we had about how to communicate meditation to kids? And by doing that, we brought in a new perspective to our ideation session. And it helped us think about how a cartoon, or in this case, someone that is very tied to our audience, might solve this problem. So this is the invitation to you. Next time you're thinking about how to solve a problem, think about a fresh perspective. Think about the hero from another part of the world, from another industry, from another company that you admire, that will help you bring that fresh perspective. How would Google solve this problem? How would Disney solve this problem? How would Netflix solve this problem? Apply what you know about those companies to your specific situation. This is going to start creating new connections in your brain, and it's going to force your brain to bring in that fresh perspective to solve your specific problem. So give it a try. Next time, think about your Wonder Woman, for example, or your superhero, and think about how they would solve this problem. What would they say? What would they think? What would they feel? And what they do to solve this problem? So there you have it. 3 specific hacks that can help you think differently, innovate. And the importance behind this is because this is a secret superpower, because at the end, it impacts your bottom line. Creative thinking has 4 major things that can do for your business or organization. First thing is that it accelerates growth. Companies that foster creativity are 3.5 times more likely to achieve revenue growth. It actually builds market share. 50% of companies that embrace creativity enjoy 50% or more of market shares than those who don't. It boosts your bottom line. 82% of companies believe there's a strong connection between creativity and bottom line businesses results. And finally, it nurtures diversity of thought. Companies that foster diversity of thought have 45% more likelihood of growing market share. So there you have it. If you really want to be able to innovate, to be able to be ahead of the competition, have a competitive advantage, understand your evolving customer needs, we need to think thoughts we have never thought before. So to wrap it up, as we just saw with our 3 hacks, start somewhere. And the first thing is we need to provoke your brain. We need to get it out of the shortcuts mode. We need to make sure that we're creating this brain food so you think differently. We do that by doing a couple of techniques. For example, forcing connections. Number 2, revolutionizing through powerful questioning. And number 3, altering your perspective. So hopefully this was useful for you in terms of thinking how easy it could be to start thinking differently, how to innovate, and how can this be applied for your specific company, for your specific organization, and the current problem or situation that you have in front of you that you want to solve for or create something new. Thank you so much for joining Ideagen. Thank you so much for the invitation. You can follow me at any social media, Just Squiggle Away, and I invite you to go visit me at Just Squiggle and let me show you how you can find and discover and apply your secret superpower, creative thinking. It's a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.